Good afternoon. Welcome to our December 6th work session. Present in the boardroom, we have members Wilson, Lessons, Higgins, and Bellamy. And I understand member Jacobs is in the hallway. He's on his way in. And we also have Dr. Bishop, along with several staff. And we have member Holloman. So with that, I'd like to go to item B on our agenda, which is our board's requests for information. Okay, can I? All right. Turn on, you can turn on your monitor to see it better. It's all right. I think we can turn on our monitors. So the first item of discussion is one that has come up several times relative to how the district is broadcasting our meetings. So this item, we've given lots of information in Board Connect, but I did want to, I don't know that there's anything else we can do about this other than answer questions and give the reality of the situation. So the information that we put in Board Connect on November 19th and 24th, does anyone have any questions about that? I think the intent of the question, member Donnelly actually had the question and he's not with us yet, but if the intent is to reach more people, I think we're using the technology to help us do that. So unless there is another person who wants to pursue this inquiry, or unless you have questions, I'd like to remove it from the request for information because I think we have all the information that we need. Seeing none, that item is removed. Okay, let's go on to the next one. We got several here today. The next item came from member Lessons. And you can see the question. The question is about, and we've actually had a discussion on this before as well. The question is, could ASD now accept and use any of the federal relief funds? I lost it, Katie.
Sorry, I can't roll it down and I wanted to stay up there.
That's okay. Could ASD use or now accept or use any of the federal funds that were previously declined? And she gives a reason, and then to distribute rapid at-home testing kits as the airport is now doing. And then personal comments. So member Lessons, did you want to speak to that? I do know that we had a report from the superintendent that gave us the information as to that we were aware that the funds were available and that we were staffing wise, capacity wise, we were unable, and in terms of reporting, we were unable to accept it at the time. But I'll let you speak to your question.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know that I anticipated this becoming an RFI, but if there has been a change in our circumstances such that we could accept potential funds and potentially send our kids home with testing. I mean, it was really the report in the newspaper that the airport is now making these kits available that said that made the question rise up in my mind. So not wanting to shift burden, but thinking that preemptive testing could be helpful on the flip side from winter break, and would the funds be available to do so?
Sure. Thank you. Dr. Bishop?
Thank you. And certainly the availability of testing is key. I mean, that's something that Dr. Zink talks about all the time. And what we have done, as just a review, is to invest our funds and our time and our energy into students and staff, primarily at school, so that we can get a rapid test at school, PCR, when a child gets sick, so they can get right back into school. The home kits are great just for that. If you come up with a negative, you're supposed to take another one anyway. If you come up with a positive, it's probably positive. Our fear was that, and continues to be, just overburdening our nurses, because once the schools hand these out, the school is the reason, really across the country, they want schools to hand them out. And they've been asking us to do the vaccinations at the federal level, is because we are trusted. We're a trusted entity already in the neighborhood. I would, at this point in time, just because of the amount of work with the quick testing we're doing, just to keep our staff and students in school, as well as our vaccination clinics that we ran, just to keep the focus on those. And we would help other entities in the community get the tests. I think they're a great idea. I just don't want to be the distributor of those, because then we own all the work that goes with them afterwards. And a lot of the prior to that time was the reporting of it. That has gone away with these new kits. It's just, when something goes wrong, it's going to be a call to the school nurse about, oh, I have these and you gave them to, and so we want to continue the capacity of the PCR. I would foresee in the future, when this isn't so new and isn't such a thing, that it would be appropriate in a school that kind of like everything else, it's not just like this, burdensome. It's more known. I would recommend that at that time we do, but not now. I would support our families go to stores. They're coming in from the airport. Other places that families go to, I would encourage the board. That would be my recommendation. But it's not passing judgment on the value of a home test. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess that answers
your question. Okay.
Yes, that answers my question.
Okay. Thank you. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick follow-up. My understanding is that there were some instances where we were utilizing and distributing at-home tests. Is that no longer the case?
Through the president to Member Jacobs, at one school, someone from the health department came and handed them out, but the principal and nurse, and what had happened. We found out about it, parents calling saying, what is this for? Mm-hmm. And so when we found out, it was at a charter school, and, the nurse had to answer all the questions. So we kind of, at that, even unsuspecting, we actually ended up working through that issue. But for the first 2 hours, we did not know what the calls were about, because we said, no, we are not giving them out. No, we're not. We finally were able to locate where they were given out.
Any other questions on this item? Member Lessons, your question is answered to your satisfaction. Thank you. Let the record show that Member Donnelly has joined us. Welcome, Mr. Donnelly. Next on the agenda, our next item is a curriculum question from Member Lessons. And Member Lessons, I'll let you ask your question. I think the last one is, I don't find the question, so why don't you?
Okay, there's a process more than a question. I will say that I feel as a board member that one of the things that I should be aware of, responsible for, is being aware of what is taught and what the future schedule would be like, what looks like for when curricular materials will be adopted. And I really appreciated the calendar that was made available to board members. And in the interests of public transparency, one question was, wow, that's a great resource. Could that be available to the public so that other parents and community members can know, oh, in 3 years this will happen, or this is in the plan, the work. So it just seems like a good piece of information to share. And that's my take. I have a particular interest in social studies, and I was looking at when different social studies materials are going to be slated for adoption or review. And, some of them are very old, at least on the calendar, adopted in 1994 or adopted in 2010. And I guess the questions that I submitted were with respect to, could the middle school materials be accelerated, that process of adoption? Could that take place sooner than 5 or 6 years from now? And because they're just quite old. And, looking back to a conversation that we had in July, is updating our social studies framework with to integrate the C3 framework, is that within the realm of the possible? I understand that this year is challenging, but this is sort of long-term planning that the board is, responsible for. So I'm interested in understanding what the potential is for updating our curriculum materials and for making that information transparent to the community.
So I did receive this question, and we're actually working on it. Of course, the social studies in relation to the board goals were specifically related to economics and financial literacy. But I'm going to give it to the teaching and learning, and it's, they'll come back with the plans, but it doesn't, like putting it online and having it viewed, all that stuff seems pretty easy, that we could work through those things, and I'll have them present it back in a board connect. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So that would be a board any other questions? Member Higgins?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I appreciate it, because the board's responsibility is pretty big. And in the past, we've used like Council of Great City Schools to come in and do audits, and they've got people from throughout the country to help us generate recommendations. And my issue is 2 things. I would hope that we would be looking at that sometime in the future. We'll talk about what the audit committee could be and how it could play out. But the question I have is just cost. I know curriculum's expensive. We have some one-time money with the federal. Opportunities here are limited with that type of cost. Do you have an idea, too, of the cost associated with changing the curriculums? I know it makes a difference whether it's high school, middle school, elementary, the like. But if we're going to look at a comprehensive review, something I know that state statutes talk about doing every 10 years with the remote areas type thing, and the benefits associated with it, what we might be looking at in the way of cost would be beneficial information from my standpoint.
That's a great question, and we will include that. Just for reference, I believe the last reading and math, but it was not for everyone, but it was not K-12, but it was pre-K, was in 6 million, in the millions. So it's quite a bit because of our size, and people, drop your jaw, but we're such a large district. We have lots of kids, and it's hard to kind of wrap your head around that, what that really looks like to get new curriculum. And I do believe that the curriculum is online, the curriculum cycle. So we'll look at it to just make it easier clicks to get there. It may be more obvious. So, yeah.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, follow up real quick. I mean, the benefits to me, I see, of the online type systems being able to connect and integrate everything within the school district is some of those costs have really come down compared to where they are, depending upon the group that you're doing it with. And I can see the benefits there if we have to ever go with a new variant from the COVID or anything else. It gives us all that app, and more people looking at that connection anyway. That the school district could provide it. So I know that's a more complex kind of question because it's estimating the cost, but I'm looking at it from that perspective because it differentiates instructions, it provides online, it stays connected. They're just, they've got some leading edge, I know, with academic results going up. So if there's some way to guess at that, and I think it is a guess, and I admit that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So it sounds like we will start with Board Connect and then revisit depending on what questions come up after that. So there are 2 members interested, and it will move forward. Our next one has to do with Abbott Loop Elementary. This question came from member Donley. Member Donnelly, did you want to speak to your question, or do you want me to just read it? Oh, your mic.
Trying to remember what year it was, but the Abbott Loop sprinkler system was on the bonds that passed at least 3 years ago, I think. And recently, a memorandum we received from Bond Counsel stated that once the voting public approves a bond proposition, the district is legally obligated to execute all projects on the proposition unless uncontrollable or extreme circumstances impede project completion. So I was just wondering, what is the status of the Abbott Loop sprinkler project that was approved by the voters?
Sure, Dr. Bishop.
I can share that. And it was noted by the board that Abbott Loop upgrades was not on the bond. And we shared at the previous meeting that once the CIP comes back, noting that Abbott Loop totally upgraded isn't going to be on there, we're going to move forward with the sprinkler system. We were, at the time it was on the CIP for something different, and those projects were going to be integrated. But with the approval of the CIP, we can move forward with the original bond that was passed in regard to the sprinkler system.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Donnelly? Did you have a follow-up?
So if I understand right, has their design work been done at all?
I'm gonna. I don't know if Tom Roth is here, but I believe it's pretty much. I mean, it's ready to go. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in suspension in case the board went with a full remodel of Abbott Loop?
Not a full remodel, but any kind of other improvements.
Okay.
We would want to put those together to make the cost most efficient. We try to do that on all of our projects, that if we foresee different sections, when you tear a roof off or rip up a floor or do something like that, it's best to have it all in the same. And Abbott Loop does, as you know, have some other interesting parts of its school that need upgrading as well.
Okay, so we're going to proceed now to
once the CIP is approved from the board.
Thank
Yes.
Is there another question on this? Member Donnelly, does that answer your inquiry? Thank you. So that one is answered, Katie. Was that our last one?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other requests for information to add? We won't get to them today, but we can add some today. Yes, Member Higgins.
I know that the first question probably came from Member Donnelly, so we might want to make sure that that was addressed if there's any issues, since he's here now.
So if you can go back, the question regarding GCI and we went, the board, there wasn't a second person that was interested, Member Donnelly, but we did pull up the Board Connect responses from the 19th and the 24th. And the general consensus is that the district is currently using the technology that would provide the best and most and the broadest access to citizens.
I think that's great. We're using what we're using, but the assembly's doing both. They're both using Channel 9 and
Can you
some sort of streaming
note from the assembly?
provision too.
So we did follow up with that top response there is actually from the municipal clerk. And she has now made the switch from GCI Channel 9 to GCI streaming. And in order to stream, you need to streaming, that's Yukon TV. So
the assembly is using Channel 9 still.
But they're switching. They're switching from GCI Channel 9 to Yukon TV.
Right, and Yukon's where Channel 9 is going to be now.
Yes, I can assist. But in order to get how you get to ours or to theirs, you need to stream either way. I believe that they are paying additional funds. What we're concerned about was not expending any other money for ADA compliance in regard to that and just running dual systems. So Channel 9, they're going to stream it on Channel 9, but it's going to be streamed the same way. And ours is just streamed on our YouTube channel. Both are streamed.
Katie.
There was an additional point that Robert had shared with me that through the Yukon TV, if we were to broadcast on there, we would not see any of the shared screen, the documents, or anyone participating by Zoom. It would only show the main boardroom.
And I called the Channel 9 folks and talked to them, and at that time they advised me that there would be no cost to the school district to go on Channel 9. So unless something's changed since then, I don't think there's any additional cost to the ASD for being on Channel 9.
The interpreter services. Member Jacobs.
Yeah, no, Madam President, thank you. I was just going to speak to the same point that the Assembly had to amend their budget to include an additional figure, and I don't recall what it was, but it was well above 6 figures to add that accessibility and to make the Channel 9 a viable option. And so that would be something to consider. It is not a no-cost option.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Thank you. So we are now moving on to item C. For item C, you have several documents before you. You have a superintendent search timeline, which we're going to walk through in a minute. And you also have a planning sheet. And I want to start with this planning sheet first with the little orange stripe at the top. Just making sure that we think about those things for each of us that are non-negotiable when it comes to selecting our new superintendent. Think about those things that are non-negotiable. So a non-negotiable would be, don't select anybody who lost their license before. I mean, that's a simple kind of thing, right? Now, we are going to engage in a process with a third-party search firm. That search firm is Ray and Associates. They have history in Alaska as well as with the district. I have consulted with and had communications from several agencies. I've asked the purchasing to vet Ray and Associates. So the timeline that you have in front of you actually does keep that in. I mean, it's kind of contingent upon the search firm. So I think let's walk through the timeline, and then we'll come back to the input that I need from each of you. So there are actually 5 phases in my research, and looking at what we've done before, there are actually 5 phases to selecting the superintendent. We are in the pre-planning phase now. That's where we've been since the superintendent announced her retirement. In that I've been trying to, I will confirm the third-party search firm. I have identified members for 2 ad hoc committees, one internal and another external. The internal ad hoc committee will work directly with the search firm in giving input into the characteristics, attributes for the new superintendent. The external firm, I pitched a project to Leadership Anchorage to get them involved in really canvassing the community, not just our parents, but our partners, our students, also doing an external collection of information. And they did select our project last week. So we will have those 2 input mechanisms in place. Katie, do you have the breakout for each of those committees? Internally, we have AEA, every bargaining unit will have representation, along with every advisory group that's internal will have representation. Katie, if she can find that, we'll pull that up and show you what the internal looks like. And the external which will be pretty much managed by Leadership Anchorage, will basically deal with all of our external partners, which could include parents. Well, that will include parents. We've broken it out into students. Hold up, I don't see it. It's coming. Sorry. So which committee is this? This is our internal committee. Students, parents, support staff, elementary teachers, teachers, one elementary, secondary, middle and high school, as well as specialists, exempt, and our principals. We can, if I've overlooked anyone, we can come back to them, because I just remembered I don't see a charter school person on there, but we might need to add a charter school. This committee will work directly with the search firm. They will do their canvassing, they would do their input, they will conduct a survey, all of that to come back to the board for consideration when we do our final, profile, when we do our final profile. Yes.
Will they be providing information on what they would like to see in the superintendent? Will they actually be screening?
No, they will not be screening.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
That's
only
fine.
the board will do that, in the search firm. No, they will be providing input only. Good question though. Okay, so looking at our timeline, we're in the pre-planning phase. And one of the things we're due is hopefully approve this timeline, or at least accept it, because we won't approve it until we get it from the actual search firm itself. I want to talk a little bit about our non-negotiables, and when we go into executive session today, begin talks about our contract, the contract and what that's going to look like. In stage 1, it will start on December 20th and go through, you can see the activities, it'll go through January to the end of December, early January. And this is interviews with the board. Each of us will have an interview with the search firm, and then we will have group meetings with the search firm. That is to design our profile, the criteria that we're looking for. The internal and external committees will be working at the same time. Stage 2 would begin in January. That's again just gathering all the input and the data from the outside. Now, one of the reasons Ray and Associates is absolutely, I'm really impressed with them. They will provide an online survey that's tailored to us, and we will use that survey. We have the option to use the survey, or we can come up with our own. I don't think we want to come up with our own. I think we can use their survey once we see what's actually, once we see what's in it. We may add something to it or not. Stage 3 is recruiting and screening, and so really the input part will be done by February 1st. And you'll see that the screening process for the board will start in that stage 3. Yes, Mr. Higgins.
Is the stage 2, stage 3 recommendation, that separation being presented by the recruitment firm? Because I'm asking, going out and searching for the applicant is not going to be, and then screening them afterwards with the information being provided is two different things. I'm used from a recruitment perspective. We know what we're looking for qualifications. Who will be the best fit is what the input is from others, I believe. But for the qualification standpoint, that's pretty well straightforward. So if we can combine the recruitment aspect during January and February, we're going to be a lot better off. And we can't wait till May to make a selection, because it's going to impact, one, depending upon who we hire, and two, the transition time is too limited. So I really feel strongly that January, we need to be recruiting effectively then, so that we can speed this up. The feedback from others can be ongoing, because they're not screening the applicants.
And that is, you are absolutely correct. It can be ongoing. So until we sit down with the search firm to do the day by day or the month by month or week by week, that is a good point. And I'm not suggesting that we don't, because the input can go on. The input's going to be used more for screening applicants. They can start collecting applications tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's the input from the community and the staff that will help screen those applicants.
Yeah, if we can, this is the issue of other school districts recruiting
Exactly.
as well. The faster we get started, the better off we're going to be. And we're also, like I said, the transition time is really difficult.
Yeah.
When you make a decision that may not be to May or June.
Yeah, and
that would
I
be real
absolutely
tough.
agree. And this approximate timeline fits within the schedule that they already have, that the search group firm already has.
Okay, but
So-
this is open for discussion with the
Absolutely.
search firm so that we
Absolutely.
can start in January. Because I
Absolutely.
don't think that's going to impact them at all from a recruitment standpoint. You're getting the publications out, you're getting the information out. It's pretty quick.
Yeah. And so again, I agree. I do think that if we are asking for input, we need to allow some time for that input to come in.
The input is not going to alter the qualifications for the notification to the job, though.
No.
How we're recruiting to get the applicants, but then how we're screening is the information.
Exactly.
So, well,
Okay, we're saying the same thing. I think we're saying the
we're going
same
to be
thing.
ahead of the game.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. So so how much of 2 and 3 we can combine? We can, that will be a great question. I will make sure that we put it on the list of questions. So then you'll see stage 3 and 4. There's probably some room in there to again combine activities. So what I'm hearing is, and what I agree, I mean, I want is that we want to be sooner rather than later. But I still want there to be meaningful. I mean, if the community thinks that we are making decisions and just ignoring, not considering their input. So how we market that would have to be very, very clear. That the input from the community would be actually used to screen the applicants once we have them.
I'm used to putting this out like a perk chart, which for management
Yeah.
says you essentially identify all the activities going on and what time frame is critical. If the recruitment is delayed, everything gets delayed. You can't
Right.
help it. So you look and say, okay, these time frames can vary, but the time frame for the recruitment is there. So like I said, your public will know. We won't even have the applicants in. We'll get the information in. That's fine. And then go forward. I just feel strongly that this is critical.
Okay, I agree. All right, so other comments or questions on the timeline? Again, it's a draft. It just gives us hopefully if all goes well, we should have a superintendent sometime in maybe, I want to say March, but then I can't say. I mean, I'm not the professional to say, but it should be by March or 1st of April. And so once Ray and Associates is vetted, we will have them come to speak with the board directly. We will likely use electronic, as much as possible, electronic meetings so that everybody will have access and be able to participate in the process. Unless otherwise it's going to cost us more money to fly people up and back. But I think for the planning and for the board interviews, the board work with the search firm, I think we can do that electronically. Okay, so any other questions on the timeline or suggestions? So we want sooner rather than later. Other things that jump out at you. And we do want the input to be continuous, community and internal input to be continuous. And that input will be used to screen the applicants. The committees, search committees, or the ad hoc committees will not be involved in making a selection or screening candidates. It's input only. Yes.
So, I mean, I haven't studied this extensively, but I don't see when a job posting would be
December.
made public, and who is responsible for really shaping the content for direction,
We are.
what will be included in the job posting?
So if you look at stage 1, item 3, there's individual board interviews to assess the board's priorities, goals, guardrails, development of the criteria and qualifications for the superintendent position. And then we will work with our staff to design that, to do the next pieces. So I think it would be probably somewhere in that stage 1 that we would start advertising, I would think. Because to advertise and get interest out there, because if we're going to be putting things on our website, those things would say that we're looking for a superintendent. So the search firm would work with our communications department to get that information on our website, and then they would begin their processes externally, outside of us. So we won't be out there recruiting personally. The search firm will do that. Did that answer your question, Kate?
I guess I think so. I see the value of the winter vacation as a potential applicant being a time to think about an individual's next step. And it seems like if we could make a job posting available at the beginning of a general winter break, that seems like it would be an asset for potential applicants. But that's just my assumption.
Yeah. So that December 20th date is to do just that. I may not have verbalized it the right way, but the whole intent is by December 20th, we would have met with the search firm. We would have given them our criteria, and then we would have made a posting. And then they do their magic thing. Member Higgins.
Yeah, just one thing on step 12. In the past, that has to do with search firm involving, work with the board and coordinate constituent and staff involvement in the interview process. What we've done in the past, as I recall, we've had finalists have a chance to meet with the public before we finalize the decision. That, once again, is a time frame, which is why I'm trying to move this up closer, so that then we can show not just the selection of what committee members we picked, but the general public itself. And I think that's beneficial.
Okay, so a meeting before we make our selection, a meeting with the
finalists.
With the finalists.
We may have 2 finalists, we may have 3.
So that would be a public meeting. Is that a separate meeting for internal or just one for the whole community?
No, it was usually we had a public meeting, but we didn't make it all over town. We did it here, as I recall. Now with Zoom, it makes it easy for everybody to watch. It's a little different ball game anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Other comments? Again, it's going to change. But as you look at this, and as soon as I'm hoping that by December 20th, we will, I know by December 20th, we will have connected with the search firm. They would have connected with each of you and with us as a board together. So you will get more information. But this is just a start. And I've gotten some good input relative to the timeline and relative to, other pieces that I missed. Okay. So we'll come back. And if you have other thoughts on the timeline, just send them to me. It's organic. It's a work in progress. So this next piece, I know we often talk about what we want in a candidate, what we want what don't we want? I have, I know it's a interesting way to frame it, but I have non-negotiables that are important to me as a board member. I would want someone who has experience in leading a district comparable this size and or, so I don't know if you think that this would be a good discussion. I think as we try to figure out what is it that we're looking for, I just think we should also ask that question. What don't we want? Pat.
In most cases, you're trying to focus on experience, but you're looking for proven skills, knowledges, and abilities, what they refer to as the KSAs. And I think it's a good place for all of us to be discussing. What do we want to see somebody, what do we want them to accomplish? What do we expect them to achieve? And how are they going to be able to get there with, what type of visual evidence or what type of background evidence do we have in the past performance as they can be successful here? So I think that's all. It's a good discussion to have, and it may impact how the recruitment firm goes out there and searching different locations, may target additional recruitment in different areas based on that. That can be a plus. It won't limit who can apply or anything else. It's going to be more of that, but it may make a difference on how they go about recruiting.
Right. And the recruiting will be within the state. It'll be a national search.
Yeah.
So comments? Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't know that it's a great way to phrase it in terms of what don't we want. I haven't put a lot of thought into that, but I will now. So thank you for the question. I would agree with you, though, that a candidate who is experienced in working with ethnically and economically diverse populations, I think is going to be critical in having that experience. And I think we're going to hear that. My guess is we're going to hear that from our community as well, but definitely it's a priority of mine.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry.
Member
I would just add one thing, because I've been involved with recruitment so much. We often get involved in saying, okay, what can we do different in the future? We got to remember to maintain what we do right also at the same time. So when we do this type of assessment, we sometimes focus on saying, well, we could do something different, and we lose track of what we've been successful with or what goes right or anything else. So I just ask people to look at the whole job, not try to limit it when we look at those situations, because that's a pitfall that sometimes we get into.
Yeah. So other comments? What are your thoughts? New superintendent attributes? What don't you want? I know what I don't want. What don't you want? Or if it's easier, just tell me what you do want. Yes, sorry.
I think it's one that takes a little bit more reflection before trying to come out with that list right now. I just encourage people to think in terms of what we hope to accomplish the next 3 years, what we feel like can be strengthened, how we're going to achieve that, and what type of relationships we want that a superintendent wants. Remember, you got all these applicants coming in potentially from different school districts that operate differently with a board. That's an important issue. You've got all of them coming in with different sort of focus of where they've been in the past. And I always tell people that, of course, it's real common, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So we're looking at, what they've achieved, what they haven't, and how they interface with other people. So all those types of issues are there. But it takes a little bit for me to reflect on this quite a while before I can give you a quick list in line with it, because it is a complex question. I appreciate the question, but I think all of us need to be thinking about that before we even meet with the superintendent, meet with the recruitment firm, because they're going to be asking those questions.
Absolutely. And the whole intent today is for us to just begin a conversation. I just posed the conversation that way, but, we're going to have more conversation for sure. And I do realize that people need time to think and to process. I've been on the other side of selecting a superintendent. I've never been on this side. And with the added responsibility of coordinating it, it's different. So you're absolutely correct. I know that people will need some thought time. Member Lessons, and then Member Jacobs.
I actually had a question for Dr. Bishop. Since you have been there and done that, you've been through the process of the superintendent search, the hiring process, what do you think the board needs to know about the process from an applicant's standpoint? What made a search positive, effective for you? What was maybe less ideal?
Those are, through the president to Member Lessons, thank you. Those are great questions. And I really came in at the tail end, and it was the involvement of the search firm that I became interested. But I think Member Higgins was the only one here. I mean, I really had a question like, what is it that you want done? So you have to be crystal clear on that, because that's, especially if someone is going to change their location for a job, whether that's a superintendent, a teacher, administrator, whatever we do, when we recruit, we want them to know what that job's going to look like and what the expectations are. I think that is always key. But being able to have access to all of the information on the website, and a good website is probably a key feature where you can get the information that you're looking for so that you know if you're a good match, as Member Higgins mentioned. So, but access to the information, and part of that information should be very clear about the board, what the board wants in this new superintendent, what to do, because superintendents are hired all over the country to do different things. But if the board becomes clear about what it wants in its superintendent, that's going to be helpful. You'll get a good match, I think.
Yeah, go on.
If I may follow up, so would you recommend that the job posting itself is, as you say, very clear about what we're looking for, not just do you hold a superintendent's license?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And there's like perfunctory, you could probably print off right now, you could Google and probably get one offline. And they're a dime a dozen, and superintendents are trained in school. They'll be able to answer all of those questions well, because they're out there. What you need to be specific on is what you really want, and so that you'll know that that person is a match for me.
Okay, Member Jacobs?
Yeah, I was just going to go ahead and share another quality, because I thought a little bit about this because I knew the conversation was coming. I've watched a number of school board meetings from across the U.S. and this is an interesting time right now in education, especially local government. I think that this board has a number of strong personalities on it, and that's going to change every year. And I think we're headed that direction in terms of being active as a board, which I think is great. At the same time, we have goals and guardrails. And so something I appreciate about Dr. Bishop that I will be looking for, and I'm sharing it now in hopes that other board members agree with me, is I want a superintendent who is willing to push back and advocate and hold the board accountable when we stray from our goals and guardrails and we stray from what we set out to do, which in this case is, perform some very necessary correction regarding what the students know and can achieve. And so that's going to be valuable for me. And at some point, if we can ask direct questions of the candidates, I'm definitely going to be asking very specific questions about, will you tell me that you think I'm wrong on something? And this is going to be especially valuable, I think, in the years to come.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Dora, hasn't spoken yet?
So you asked the question, made me think a little bit, and like everyone else, I'll be thinking a lot more about that question about what we want to see in the superintendent. And I created a quick list. So career and life readiness, that's really important to me. The pathways that are starting to be developed district-wide, I'm looking forward to more focus on those pathways so that all of our students have opportunities within those pathways who want them. Alternative education, alternative routes of education. COVID is definitely something that has taught me and many others in the district that the focus on different types of reaching students is really important, rather than just the traditional form of educating students. So I'm looking forward to hearing what a superintendent candidate has to say about that. I ditto what Carl said regarding someone who's worked with such diverse populations as our district. That's really important to me. And I'm looking forward to hearing from staff to see how they feel best supported and what traits in a superintendent can they'd be looking for to help with that process, because it's really important to me that our staff feel supported as well.
Okay. Thank you, Member Wilson. Yes, Member Higgins.
You know, the first step normally in a recruitment process is making sure everybody involved in the selection process understands all the components of the job that they're filling. I mean, we have the public relations aspect of it, the advocacy, we have the staff relationships, we have the strategies associated with curriculum, we have the leadership questions of which approach do you take. There's so many issues out there, and I know that actually the superintendent is probably the best one to kind of address some of the things, but we've had superintendents who have been totally public relations. We've had others that have been less so. But they're all components of this job. It covers so much. You got the finance issues, management, you got the administrative processes, we got everything else associated with it. So if a good discussion in regards to what we want kind of starts in saying, what are the different components that we're hiring for? And then the question is, to me, how do we get the best match for it? But the first one is maybe for everyone here that may not have worked that much with the superintendent or done the others, all the different components of that job is a complex issue, and understanding it better, I think, would be a good starting point.
Thank you. Other comments? So as you continue to think about your attributes, characteristics, non-negotiables, please write them down. We will each have an interview at some point with the search firm, and then we will come back together. I mean, I suspect there's a matrix of some type that will help us come up with what we're looking for, what we want to accomplish. So you can expect that I can't imagine more meetings, but you can expect that there will be some more meetings. Sorry about that, guys. But we will try to arrange them and have them as, let you know in time so you can be well prepared. Other comments on the process that I might be able to answer? Member Higgins.
Just to ask that the job description be distributed to all the members so that they can have that in front of them. It might help.
Yes. Now, you guys, who doesn't have a job description for the superintendent? Do you need? Okay, we'll send out another one. I thought the old one. You mean the contract? That's what we're talking about.
Not the contract. I'm talking about the actual position description that describes all the duties.
That we used in 2016.
Yeah,
is
I don't
that
need
what
the
you're talking
contract,
about?
just the job description.
Yes, right. Yes, we can get that to you. Okay. So with that, is there any other business for the good of the order? Any other questions around? I mean, we're an hour early. Can you believe it? I thought you guys would have been a little more chatty. But this is very thoughtful work, and we've got to be reflective, but we've also got to be take our time to do it right. I do think my initial approach was to have everybody just look at our goals and especially our goals, because those are important to me. Continuing to improve our student outcomes by focusing on these goals for the next 5 years. So whoever gets my vote would have to have some kind of track record of having done that, and having done it in an inclusive and effective way. So, but with that though, the other thing that comes up for me is kind of in line with what Carl was, talked about holding the board accountable. I mean, we sometimes make things rather difficult. That's not our intent, but we do sometimes, as a board, we make things rather difficult for staff, including the superintendent. Not that we can't do that, we can, but if we are recruiting, we need to also be doing our own self-assessments at the same time. How am I, as a board member, what am I willing to do to change? Am I willing to change my behavior, my attitude, when it comes to how I function and cooperate with the superintendent? Because each of us have a different relationship. And we all are different humans. And I just think that this gives us an opportunity to also to do some self-reflection, or not, but I certainly will be doing that. So please, if we can have, I'm fully expecting to meet with someone from, I'm hoping this week. Today is just Monday, right? So I'm hoping to meet with someone from the search firm to set up our next steps. Once I get the contract vetted within the next couple of days, I hope. Not to rush. So when we hear from that, we will go to our next steps. All right, guys, you've been amazing. Yes, Kelly.
All right, if it's not too much, since we do have an hour,
You do.
It seems like it would be a good exercise to sketch out the ideal timeline in a little bit more depth. If we have the time right now, if we're gathered, if this is the launch, and maybe that begins by starting at the end. I guess that's how I would work. It's like, when do we want this signed, sealed, and delivered?
Okay.
And I think the major question
Now that would have to fit into, knowing that it has to fit into the search firm.
Sure, right. But this is maybe what we would present to the search firm and say, hey guys, can you do this?
Okay.
And one comment that has stayed with me is thinking about the bond is that confidence sells bonds. It will be great. Perhaps having a superintendent projects a certain confidence that not having a superintendent projects. So I think one question for the board is, do we want to have, in our ideal world, do we want to have somebody who has signed a contract by the day that the ballots go out?
In March?
In March. I mean, is that?
Well, we can.
Right. I mean, so that's just sort of like, what's our target date? And, is that going to help?
Mid-March?
That mid-March.
Yeah, that might.
And so if that's could we sketch out our ideal world, and knowing that the firm might say, I'm sorry, we can't.
And I guess what I would like to do is take to the firm what you've told me.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate to give them not knowing what I guess it could go either way. I mean, I don't really care. But if I was a search firm person, knowing that we are one of many, many districts that they're having to juggle,
mm-hmm.
I would want to know your pie in the sky.
I guess my pie in the sky.
We're probably not going to have a superintendent. Even if we hire one, they're coming from someplace else.
Right.
And so they're probably not likely to be here till June.
Right. But if we could say, hey, Anchorage, we know that you're going to be voting on school bonds. Here's who we've got for you.
I would hate to tie the superintendent to a bond. I really would. I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, it's not Apple. They're not directly linked, but I guess I'm looking for an end date, and that seems like a reasonable end date in a pie in the sky world.
So I would agree that April 15th is a little too long, but and it says March 7th through the 15th. It may be that March 7th all that stuff might be done by March 7th. It may be, but I won't know that until we see what their overall schedule is like and who they assign to us. So the way this timeline is now, we could very well have a candidate by mid-March. So
That's right.
that's kind of, I'm sorry, Carl? Oh, okay. Okay, go on.
Okay, I think, I mean, I'm just sharing my pie in the sky is that it would be great to get things to express our desires clearly to the search firm and say, yes, we've got this window here. Could you make it on the earlier side?
Yeah, and I think we can do that.
Okay.
So it says March 7th through the 15th. Now, stage 5 is going to depend on factors that we don't have available to us. So we may be between stages 4 and 5. We could, which starts around early March. It just depends on how all those things go. I was generous on the end date.
Okay.
But I will absolutely make a note, and I already have it, sooner rather than later for the whole thing. Other comments? But I don't know that I want it necessarily connected to the bond, but I get what you're saying, but I don't think that should be a driver in our momentum. Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I was just going to chime in briefly to say that I agree with sooner is better. I think we should probably lean on the search firm as to indicate what's possible or what's not. But the April 15th being the end of the candidate presentations to me seems a little long, at least, or what I would hope for. And so I'm anxious to see what the firm thinks we can do in terms of speeding that up.
Okay. So March it is, if not before.
Yeah, and if we do the recruitment starting in January and we do it simultaneously, we're going to be looking at applications in February, and because of the interviewing process involved probably Zoom initially and all that anyway, within it could actually move pretty quick. And then the public interviews can be established pretty quickly because of the same type of situation. So we could be looking at a selection in March. And I think it's totally doable, but it requires step 2 and 3, stage 2 and 3 to be combined. And if we pull that off, I think we'll be happier because, like I said, that transition time is going to be absolutely critical. When it comes to recruitment, though, remember, we're one of the top 100 size school districts, so we're going to get attention that way at a level that's a little different than most of the other school districts that the recruitment firm is probably hiring.
Okay. All right. Yes.
I guess I have a question for Member Higgins, since you have done this
he's an HR guy.
Could you please give me a better sense of what a public interview process would look like at that stage of the game?
We've had a chance when we did it in the past, and what we do is that we've got 2 times set up. Let's say there's 2 finalists or 3. We have them set up for different days, and the public's invited to submit questions. We're able to handle a certain amount. We start off with a presentation of the member. We provide some information. We open it up for whatever questions they would like. We make it completely open, and we put a time limit on it, though. We let people submit questions in advance in writing, and then they hand in sheets of paper with the questions, and we try to go through it and try to catch them. The first one standing in line isn't going to be the first question necessarily. We're going to ask people to submit questions. We're going to try to cover them. If we have multiple questions with the same one, we give that a higher priority. But you can't answer all the questions at one time. So we know we got a limited time. And so we get the questions. We have a presenter there with them, and they're going through it, and they ask the questions. We don't try to screen out the tough questions, but we screen out the questions that may not be appropriate. We got those as well. And so we open it up and we let people submit questions. Like I said, in the writing, we try to get back to all of them that are, within reason, so that they get a chance to see the interaction of the superintendent applicant with the public, and they're asking the questions, and they're right there on the spot answering the questions, which really works out well. I think the interactions have been professional in the past, so it's worked well. And some are more at ease at it than other applicants. You see that, which is kind of a good measure of they're going to have to be out there in the public. They're going to be representing the school district, and they're not going to get necessarily easy questions, whether it's from elected officials or others. So it's been informative, and I think all of them have done pretty good, but some have stood out more.
And you said there were 2 of those in the past.
There was 2 or 3. It depends upon the thing. I think we had 3 one time, and we had the top 3, and we let them do that. Because if we felt like the third one wasn't competitive, we would have limited it to 2.
Okay. So did you, how many finalists did you have last time? Was it 3 or 2? I can't
How many
remember.
applicants?
No, the
Finalists,
leading
I think
candidates.
last time we had 3, if I remember correctly. And the book of applications is, we get quite a few applicants. We get quite a lot, and some of which I think are, taxi drivers from Los Angeles, and others are really serious. So the majority are serious. We always get a few in there. You kind of wonder what's going on, but most of them are pretty serious applicants, and they're pretty interesting to read.
Okay. All righty. Yes. Come on. Is there a set of materials other than, a resume or CV and letters of recommendation that are commonly a part of the application packet?
Yeah.
Or is there writing? Is there, I don't know.
I think
What's
it's
in-
all of the above.
The-
I will let I don't have that handy right now, but Pat, what was in the packets you saw last time?
But the recruiting firm, in addition to inviting the applicants, when you select the ones that you want to be a finalist, they will do a background check, which will
All
cover
the
quite a
screening.
bit.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be limited to just a little bit of information. We'll get more for those, but only for the finalists do you do that particular background check. So they would look at a number of things in the background that would be pretty comprehensive, and we would have input in regards to that process too.
But I do know that there's a writing sample. I think there's a presentations thing that we get to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. And so I look forward to getting all that back to everybody. Because I think it'll be very thorough. And if something is missing that we think is important, we get to add it. Yeah. Anything else? Dr. Stock.
Thank
Please
you.
give
Dr.
us
Bishop
some-
stepped out and asked me to take point if there was anything else. So I would just add a couple of pieces that oftentimes are part of it. One is field trips to schools with designated folks, perhaps retired principals that are ASD invested, that are neutral and have no dog in the fight, if you will. And oftentimes they will do field trips to various selected schools of different types in the community to see the variety of programs. There are also often various meetings through the day to meet with, and right after school is out, to meet with various employee groups. Sometimes is done that way. Sometimes then there's an open community forum where the questions that Mr. Higgins was talking about can come up, and then usually concludes with an actual executive session interview with the final candidates. And that's one of the things. It usually ends up being almost a 2-day process sometimes, and also involves a dinner sometimes with the board in the evenings. So those are the ones that I've seen.
Great, thank you. Anybody else over there got some ideas? Want to throw anything in? I like the, I knew, I hadn't thought of the trips to the schools. I think that's a great idea. For the final 2 or 3. That's a great idea. Okay. All right, guys. Seeing no other business, we have, I think we have covered our agenda. And so we will, yes, we will need I need a motion to adjourn to executive session
Move to adjourn to executive session.
for the purpose of student hearings, legal update, negotiations, and contracts.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. With that,